do so in my capacity, and I will use it. And another thing I just wanted to add, I have the support of someone else who is in cyber security. Very close to that particular individual where I'm so close. If I turn over literally I can send information there. So I would not play some of those games that people used to play in the past. I will concentrate on games that you're playing now. Stay in your lane, and I will stay in my lane. I hope and pray for your sake that I've made myself clear. And now that those logistics are out of the way, thank you and mega love shout out to the members. Thank you, members. To the gifted members, even though you don't appear in the chat, I understand. You have your reasons, and it's okay. I'm just glad to know that you do listen from time to time. To those who have subscribed and those who come every now and again to listen in and again contribute by a comment or engagement with either myself or others. I appreciate each and every one of you. So, with that being said, the first question is, do you believe? And you don't have to answer. Actually, I think I'm going to do a poll. Do you think with the performances as of late with many people, but for this particular part of the broadcast of Pam Bondi and Kristi Noem will lead to doom for our President of the United States, Donald Trump, and the handling of certain cases, the accusations of being dishonest, and accusations of meltdown. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Nancy Guthrie and some other little extras that I have a commentary on, but we'll leave it until I get to that point. So again, welcome everyone. I do hope and pray everyone is doing well and that you are comfortable and at peace and in a good place mentally, physically, and emotionally. For some of you, it may be a 3-day weekend because tomorrow is a holiday. If so, kick back and relax. If you're just laying and you're scrolling, again, comments are welcome. And if there's something that I might report on that may not be accurate, please feel free to let me know and I'll review it. I don't know everything, trust me. I yearn, I seek knowledge in certain areas. So, without further delay, welcome to the Week in Review. I'm your hostess, Lise. If you would be so kind, please make sure that you double tap your screens or, depending upon the device you are listening to, give this a thumbs up. And if you're new to this channel, welcome. I do hope that you will return. Kristi Noem. Kristi Noem has been one of the centerpieces of conversation for a very, a very long time. And as of late, there have been many people, as we know, calling for her impeachment and her resignation. Now, in these last few days, there has been a major shakeup as it relates to possibly her making crucial mistakes in not knowing the facts in certain cases, and this is very important, the possibility of her agents being dishonest in the Alex Pretty case. So we're going to look at a couple of slides and listen to a couple of clips. Fair use. Again, keep an open mind, and again, all comments are welcome. And I thank you so much for tuning in. The slide on your screen, and I understand some of you might be out on the roads. I have people that do trucking, my trucker gals, my trucker guys, first responders, and again, those of you that might be just kicking back, just trust me, I will be too. Even though I have to work tomorrow, I actually have to go and stake out a place. What fun, but it's okay. I enjoy doing that because I capture a lot of footage. So here are a couple of bullets that DHS Secretary Kristi Noem has been accused of, and keep in mind, these are all accusations. I will say this, and again, these are my opinions. When you are in a hearing, which reminds me, I have a deposition that I have to attend on the 19th. Yep, sure do. So I have to make sure, excuse me, that I am totally prepared. I mean, I am prepared, but we have to consult with the attorneys, and again, depositions are just that. I have all of my ducks in a row. I was the investigator on the case, so of course I do. Photos to show exactly what the case is about and will prove what has been asserted. My answers will not be what protocol is or what I think should be. My answers will be what I saw, the date that I saw, the times that I saw, and other things that I saw. There will be no doubt when I complete what I have to say, because it will match everything that was written and in the case file. When asked in reference to the deportation of U.S. veterans. And I showed this on an earlier broadcast. In December 2025, Kristi Noem was accused of perjury for testifying to Congress that no military veterans had been deported. However, she was stopped in her tracks and shown where indeed there were. For those of you who need a reference, I'll put that in the description because I did a whole live on that and I covered that. Or you can do your own meticulous research and find that video, meaning there's plenty of video clips of just that. Representative Seth Magaziner immediately countered this, stating that her agency, meaning the Department of Homeland Security, again, the last time I did a live, I shared with you, and a lot of you that actually know me, you know I used to work. I used to work for the Department of Homeland Security. Yep. Sure did. Sure did. So I think I have a little bit of experience in knowing how this agency worked then and how it works now. And I also want to add, and I've put this up many, many times before, there's a place in Georgia, FLEXI, and that acronym stands for the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. I attended FLEXI on 2 occasions. My stay, both times, were for 2 weeks. I had to go to Denver for another grueling training, and that was for my experienced OPM. And for those of you familiar with the federal government, OPM stands for the Office of Personnel Management. See, I did background investigations for the government as well. Yes. I've investigated many people in the military, civilians, you name it. I've done it. So again, I believe that qualifies me to speak on and having knowledge of certain things within the federal government. Some of you just like to talk. I've actually had boots to the ground and worked in these positions that gave me the experience and also knowing how long training was. Because see, when we went, Border Patrol was there, Customs, they were there as well. Long periods of time, and those rookies for 1811s, that's special agents. They spent months there. So again, I know the workings of that agency. There was, during her testimony, a part where she was shown via Zoom an Army combat veteran who was deported to Korea. detention of American citizens. Kristi Noem claimed that no U.S. citizens had been arrested or detained by federal immigration agents under her watch. Critics and Democratic lawmakers accused her, I'm not going to use that word, but I'm just going to say being dishonest, citing reports that Americans were, in fact, detained during targeted enforcement operations. Next, compliance with court orders. Kristi Noem testified that the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, complies with all, not some, not just a few, but all federal court orders. Congressman DeAndre and others accused her, again, of being dishonest, alleging, and again, these are allegations, that DHS, under her leadership, defied court orders by, for example, continuing deportation flights to El Salvador despite injunctions. Injunctions, for those of you who may not be familiar, are usually orders or motions to stop or to cease a certain action until further notice. I'll leave that there for a moment. You all too, read it and understand. Next, the ICE incident accountability. Following the fatal incident of U.S. citizen Alex Pretty by federal agents in Minneapolis in January 2026 that spread through the airwaves and continues to have an effect on so many, in different ways, of course. Noem was accused of spreading false information, and reports suggest that she and her department defended agents initially by misrepresenting the events, which was contradicted by video evidence. Video evidence. Now, again, I would think someone in that position, and this goes for FBI Director Kash Patel, who has done this himself a couple of times now. You wait until you have facts that have been verified before you hold a press conference and you release any information. Do you know how many rogue officers are out there? How many agents are out there that are dishonest and they don't follow protocol? So I would think that it would behoove you, being the Secretary of Homeland Security, that you would indeed, at least, at the bare minimum, look at the files, look at the case yourself, even though you may have those underneath that you entrust to review and provide you with accurate information. It seems as though that did not happen. During a CBS Face the Nation appearance, Kristi Noem was confronted for backtracking on claims that the percentage of detained individuals who had criminal convictions would anchor Margaret Brennan, accusing her of providing inaccurate numbers. And then we have Hatch Act violations. Critics allege that a video she produced for TSA, airport security lines, which blamed Democrats for a government shutdown, violated the Hatch Act. The Hatch Act prohibits executive branch employees from engaging in partisan activities. So that's there, and we're going to listen to a couple of clips of Kristi Noem. Again, for those of you just joining, welcome to the Weekend Review. I'm your hostess, Lise, and it's good to have you here. This Sunday, February the 15th, 2026. Again, welcome to you. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to listen to Kristi Noem when she's asked questions and seems as though she tap dances around it. Your thoughts?
We're concerned about the Department of Homeland Security not being funded. In fact, I think it's the wrong message to send to the world at this point in time. When you think about it, every other portion of the federal government has been funded except Homeland Security. That's telling the rest of the world the Democrat Party doesn't think that protecting America is safe. It's the wrong message to send. They keep talking about the fact that they want ICE's operations to be impacted, but only 11% of that bill is ICE. The rest of it is FEMA, which is responsible for disaster response, for protecting our critical infrastructure. If we had some kind of an attack or a terrible disaster that hit our country, FEMA is the agency that's responsible for running our government, for stabilizing our country. And the Democrat Party is choosing not to fund FEMA and put us in jeopardy in that situation. The other things that wouldn't be funded is TSA. The security at all of our airports is in jeopardy because they've refused to fund the Department of Homeland Security. The TSA, those officers that show up and check your bags, they screen individuals on if they're safe to get on airplanes or not, they won't be paid. After Friday, they won't be paid and won't receive their paychecks. And I hear people talk about the fact, well, they're exempt employees, they're expected to still show up. How long would you continue to show up for a job that you're not being paid for? In fact, these TSA employees...
Sometimes I wonder, and I don't mean to sound disrespectful, if she actually believes some of the things that she says. Does she remember what she did to FEMA? We're going to talk about an airport incident that involved Kristi Noem and another individual where there are alleged, and I must say, there are unconfirmed reports that there might be an inappropriate, I'll just say, association going on that gives off Fani Willis vibes. Now, for those of you who may not know Fani Willis, and a lot of you should by now, Bonnie Willis is the day A of Fulton County, Georgia, who was under fire for an inappropriate relationship with Nathan Wade, a special prosecutor on the election fraud case of our President Donald Trump. And there are allegations that Bonnie Willis had a relationship with Nathan Wade, who allegedly was married, and possibly they could have been having problems. He and his estranged or ex-wife by now could have been having problems, but ethically, it was the responsibility of DA of Fulton County, Georgia, Bonnie Willis, to disclose that. She did not. Stephen Sadow and Ashley Merchant ripped her apart for that. So if you want more information on that, you're welcome to look that up. I may even put that in the description as well. So we have another clip to listen to as it relates to Kristi Noem. And again, this is the weekend edition, and I'm your hostess, Lise. Please enjoy.
Jones, I now recognize Mr. Magaziner for 5 minutes.
Madam Secretary, on April 24th, a woman in Louisiana was deported along with her 7-year-old daughter and 4-year-old son, both of whom were U.S. citizens. The 4-year-old son had stage 4 cancer. Now, you just stated under oath that the mother consented to having her U.S. citizen children removed. But I have spoken with the attorney for that U.S. citizen child with stage 4 cancer. She has also made numerous statements to the press in which she stated unequivocally that at no time did the mother consent to her U.S. citizen children being removed. What evidence do you have to support your claim that she did consent?
Congressman, we followed the same policies and procedures.
What evidence do you have?
What evidence do you have? We have documentation
what documentation do you have that mother consented?
We will get that to you, sir. I don't have it with me.
Please do. I understand it's hard to keep them all straight because you've deported multiple U.S. citizen children, but I'm asking specifically about the 4-year-old with cancer who was deported on April 25th. For the record, that family was also not given access to legal counsel before they were deported, even though their lawyer was in the same building at the time. I'm holding in my hands here a document called ICE Directive 11064, Interests of Non-Citizen Parents and Legal Guardians of Minor Children. This is the policy for how ICE agents should handle situations like this. It states unequivocally that parents and legal guardians should have the ability to make alternative care arrangements for minor children prior to their arrest or detention, and that ICE must afford parents the opportunity to consult with legal counsel. So, did the ICE agents working on this case who deported this 4-year-old with cancer of their own volition fail to follow ICE policies, or were they directed to by your office or anyone else in DHS leadership?
Sir, this mother chose to keep her child with her.
You have not produced any evidence to say so, but I'm asking again, have you directed DHS officers to ignore this policy?
It's very different than the previous administration. Right. The previous administration
on March 15th, reclaiming my time, on March 15th, your department sent 3 airplanes to El Salvador. Those planes carried approximately 261 individuals who were imprisoned upon arrival. Did you personally review and approve the names of those 261 individuals before they were sent?
Sir, we have deported and sent home
did you review the names of those individuals?
And we have individuals that have the
why won't you answer the question?
Within the Department of
Are you aware of whether those 261 individuals were given the opportunity to speak with a lawyer or appear before a judge before they were put on those planes? Yes or no?
Sir, every single individual followed the exact same process.
They were not all given the opportunity to appear before a judge or speak with a lawyer. On April 7th, the Supreme Court ruled that detainees must have an opportunity to have a hearing before they are deported. Are you familiar with the April 7th Supreme Court ruling?
I am.
Can you assure us that in the future you will abide by that Supreme Court ruling to provide detainees with a hearing before they are deported.
Following all judges' orders. Yes, sir.
I have a photograph here of André Hernandez Romero, a gay makeup artist from Venezuela. He fled Venezuela fearing gang violence because of his opposition to the Maduro dictatorship and his sexual orientation. He presented himself at a port of entry and requested asylum. His claim was found to be credible, and he was placed in detention to await a full hearing. But he never received a full hearing because you put him on one of those planes to El Salvador, where he still is today. Listen to me. He had no criminal record in the United States or in any other country. He did not even enter the country illegally. He presented at a port of entry. He tried to do it the legal way. And to this date, the only evidence your department has presented to justify his imprisonment is that he had 2 tattoos, one that said mom and one that said dad. Do you have any other evidence to present for why this individual should be locked up in El Salvador?
Sir, every case is used the same protocols and the same processes and inputs.
Do you have any evidence other than the tattoos that say mom or dad for why this individual should be locked up?
So it's not just on tattoos. It's who they're affiliated with, their communication.
You have not presented.
So, every time DHS Secretary Kristi Noem was asked a question, she wanted to go into a soliloquy of protocols, but she could not provide not one piece of evidence. And this, to me, has seemed to be a pattern. And you'll see that shortly. But this is another clip right here where I don't know if it's viral yet, but it appears that Kristi Noem was upset and a pilot was fired but then reinstated over a blanket. You heard me correctly. Let's listen to this clip.
Kristi Noem and her, let's just call him companion, Corey Lewandowski, tried to fire a Coast Guard pilot just because the Secretary of Homeland Security left her blankie on the plane. Keep in mind, this is the same Homeland Security Secretary overseeing packed ICE detention centers, like the one you see on your screen right there, where detainees are sleeping like sardines under aluminum foil blankets, according to lawmakers, where children are kept. But Kristi Noem apparently can't make it one flight without something to keep her feet warm during the in-flight movie. Poor Kristi Noem. But what really makes this news story such a bombshell piece of reporting is some of the truly wild things we are just learning for the very first time. For instance, during one official trip, people familiar with the incident say, quote, Noem had to switch planes after a maintenance issue was discovered, but her blanket wasn't moved to the second plane. Corey Lewandowski then fired a U.S. Coast Guard pilot after Noem's blanket was left behind. Okay, the story continues. It gets even better. The Coast Guard pilot was told to take a commercial flight home when they reached their destination, but they eventually reinstated the pilot because no one else was available to fly them home. What?
Your thoughts and opinions on that. And I'm going to put up another quick clip that has a little bit of comedic, at least in my opinion, value to this. And you can check this gentleman out, Forced News, over on TikTok. But again, what you're about to hear are allegations, unconfirmed reports. So again, you can check this gentleman out, Forced News, at TikTok.
News from the floor, a special Valentine's Day edition. Few people were surprised when the Wall Street Journal reported that med spa Jezebel, Kristi Noem, and Corey Stabby Lewandowski have been abusing their powers as Homeland Security Secretary and Homeland Security Sugar Booger. Apparently they share a cabin in a high-priced jet. They fly around the world, and he buys her clothes that flatter her chest. Ugh. They're also firm believers in Christian marriage, if Christian means sham. And for Jerry Falwell Jr., of course it does. That much and more. Hey, it's funny, they both like closed borders, but open marriages. Apparently, Lewandowski fired a pilot for losing Kristi's blanket. Then he rehired the pilot since they needed somebody to fly the plane home. Boy, these people have beauty and brains. Too bad they're both made of plastic. So I guess Noem really loves that blanket. She's like Linus, if Linus weren't smart.
I can't make this stuff up if I wanted to. Now, what you're about to listen to is an audio of House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. And again, don't get me wrong, I don't care too much for either one of them, but this is what they had to say as it relates to DHS Secretary Kristi Noem.
If Democrats take back the House or Senate, will they do anything to slash funding for ICE or hold ICE accountable for these fatal shootings? There are multiple shootings, not just what happened to Renee Good.
Let me first say that the killing of Renee Nicole Good was an abomination, a disgrace. And blood is clearly on the hands of those individuals within the administration who've been pushing an extreme policy that has nothing to do with immigration enforcement connected to removing violent felons from this country. We support the removal of violent felons from this country who are here illegally. But that's not what this administration has been doing under the so-called leadership of Kristi Noem, who's a stone cold liar. There's no evidence at all that this was a justified shooting. So let's deal with the tragedy right now. She hasn't even been buried. Her family is grieving. She was a single mom and an American citizen. And we all are outraged by what took place in Minneapolis, and we will respond decisively.
Okay, that was House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who referred to Kristi Noem as a stone cold liar. Now that was pretty strong language there, but given the fact that she has not provided the receipts that she's claimed, can you really blame people for feeling the way that they do? Now, the videos that you saw earlier, when she was speaking on FEMA, that's in reference to funding cuts to the Department of Homeland Security. Your thoughts so far? Your thoughts so far? Do you feel as though Kristi Noem is qualified for this position? Do you think Kristi Noem should resign? Do you think Kristi Noem will be impeached. I'll give you a few moments to ponder that, and we'll return shortly. Again, welcome to the weekend edition, the Weekend Review. I'm your hostess, Lise, and we'll be right back. Now, we're going to listen to one of my favorite go-tos for those of you that have been watching me. We're going to listen to Ben Meiselas of The Midas Touch. Again, this is courtesy of The Midas Touch. And the title of this video is Kristi Noem Thrown Under the Bus by Her Own ICE Agents.
ICE and Border Patrol are calling Kristi Noem a liar in public. Let me repeat that. Kristi Noem, who runs the Department of Homeland Security, is being called a liar by ICE and Border Patrol. Wow. So what's happening here is that Kristi Noem, back on January 15th, she adopted what some ICE agents said at the time, which apparently was not investigated, that these migrants lured ICE agents out and started beating them with shovels after a car chase transpired, and that ICE was under attack, and that these agents were almost killed. Like, you remember when that was? It was right around the murder of Renee Nicole Good and right before the death of Alex Preddy, and this event was used to kind of say, look, this is why we need to bring in more people from Operation Surge, and Kristi Noem made TV appearances, and
And again, I'm going to reiterate what I said earlier. It befuddles me how someone being the Secretary of Homeland Security would make statements without doing their own research. And I have to do a hard pause on that, because in doing what I do, and for those attorneys who entrust in my reports and my photographs and my interviews and my circling back around, obtaining footage, comparing it to what witnesses may have said and what the footage shows, and then my recommendations, there is no way I'm going to tarnish the integrity, number one, of my name and of that firm, my reputation or the firm's reputation, and speaking too soon without knowing the facts. That is the epitome of professionalism and doing your due diligence, because lives and livelihoods are on the line. Let's continue.
They showed the photos of migrants and said these people are basically terrorists and they tried to kill our ICE agents. Now, even the head of ICE, Todd Lyons, the acting head of ICE, is saying that didn't happen. It's actually January 14th. She went on air January 15th. And Todd Lyons says that the two officers involved in the January 14th Chase shooting incident appeared to have lied under oath and are being investigated by the Department of Justice. This comes after Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem defended them as firing in self-defense. Here's the statement from the acting head of ICE right now. Today, a joint review by ICE and the Department of Justice video evidence has revealed that sworn testimony provided by two separate officers appears to have made untruthful statements. Both officers have been immediately placed on administrative.
Now again, keep in mind, appears doesn't mean they actually did. But if I were a betting person, and I am not, I'm going to go with the side of me that would say that the probability of the officers not being truthful is extremely high. And if it is proven that these two officers fabricated their stories, that could mean trouble, not only for those two officers, but for Kristi Noem and FBI Kash Patel. And not forget about, please let's not forget about Vice President J.D. Vance, who I believe mentioned something about immunity or absolute immunity. People try to come in my comments and mention about this very same subject. Well, those two officers are now they're under investigation now with the DHS and FBI and how they have been botching investigations. I don't have too much faith in that, but the very fact that J.D. Vance got up and said they were doing their jobs and they're protected. Well, seems like that protection that you boasted about, at least on the surface, isn't there, because that investigation is ongoing. And for those of you, before you start talking about Renee Good, yes, DOJ halted that, but there's still a chance that can be revisited. The Creator works in mysterious ways. By the time all of this is over, and I predict it'll be pretty soon, a lot of people are going to start singing like a canary. Let's continue. Again, this is courtesy of the Midas Touch.
Leave pending the completion of a thorough internal investigation. Lying under oath is a serious federal offense. The U.S. Attorney's Office is actively investigating these false statements. Upon the conclusion of the investigation,
false statements. False statements. I remember a lot of people jumped up and down for joy. I've got joy. When the indictments came down for former FBI Director James Comey and Letitia James, and that bird brain and Lindsay Halligan, who was too humiliated and representing, or shall I say, misrepresenting herself, finally was given the boot. And she too could face additional issues. We'll see. But again, Sometimes it's best to wait. Wait until the smoke clears, because there are a lot of you that left comments, some left emails, that there would be no investigation in either of those cases. Now, the difference in the Renee Good and Alex Pretty case is both of them had video, but the video in the Alex Pretty case was, I believe, a little bit more damning. And the fact that he was painted as a domestic terrorist without any investigation and nothing substantive to show how they even came to that conclusion was a problem in the beginning, but so many people are blinded by hate. I believe a lot of people are brainwashed. You never believed it could get to this point. Now, could these two men get off? It's a possibility. It's a possibility. Again, nothing surprises me anymore, but the fact that they're at least investigating it, where, again, Vice President J.D. Vance with his propped up chest saying that they had immunity, basically untouchable. That wasn't accurate. That wasn't accurate at all. Let's continue to listen to the Midas Touch. This is the Weekend Review. I'm your hostess, Lise. Please make sure that you double tap your screens, and depending upon the device you're listening to, give this a thumbs up. If you are new to this channel, welcome, and I do hope you enjoy your stay, and I do hope that you will return.
The officers may face termination of employment as well as potential criminal prosecution. The men and women of ICE are blah, 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 and, entrusted. Okay, you're a bunch of terrorists and Gestapo and SS, in my opinion. But, remember how Fox was reporting it then? Attempted murder. An ICE officer is fighting for his life after he was allegedly ambushed with a shovel and a broom handle by 3 illegal immigrants during a traffic stop that quickly spiraled into a foot chase, a violent struggle, and gunfire. Remember that?
I certainly do. I certainly do. And what came of that? What came of that, Ben? Let the audience know.
All of that was false. All of it was false. What ended up happening was the DOJ charged 2 of the immigrants, and then those 2 immigrants started saying, this is all a lie. So then what happened? Then Trump's Gestapo tried to deport the eyewitnesses, and so that there would be no witnesses in the case where they were trying to frame the immigrants who were being claimed to be terrorists. But the immigrants hired a lawyer who then filed an action in federal court and got an injunction by a federal judge to block the deportation of material witnesses, because the Trump regime tried to get all of the witnesses deported immediately to cover this up. Finally, when a federal judge ruled that the witnesses get to stay here in this country because they're material witnesses and they can't be deported, that's when the story all of a sudden changed. Let me remind you what Kristi Noem said when she went on Fox the day after this. And by the way, a modicum of due diligence would...
Did I not just say that? Did I not just say that? Due diligence. Due diligence. Anytime that you are in the capacity of law enforcement, it is your duty. It is your duty to make sure that you absolutely provide due diligence. Let's continue.
Would have said this didn't happen. And in any event, why, in any normal situation, you would just say, you know what, the facts are being gathered and we're not going to comment any further. And you leave it at that. That's what you're supposed to do. But as we saw with Alex Pretty, where she called him a domestic terrorist, and Renee Nicole Good, this is what this regime does. They lie about everything. And just think about the millions of other lies that don't get caught. Fortunately, this one got caught with good lawyering, with eyewitnesses, with video. But here's what Noem said. Let's play it.
What more can you add from this incident last night?
Well, our agents were out doing what they're doing every single day across this country, as they were doing targeted enforcement, going after individuals that are breaking federal law. When this individual drove away, crashed his car, tried to run into a home, and as they were wrestling on the ground trying to detain this individual, two other men came out of that building and started attacking him with weapons and shovels and brooms. And as it was 3-on-1, the agent feared for his life and defensively had to take action. But, this kind of violence is perpetuated by what we hear the governor saying, what we hear the mayor in Minneapolis saying, and their irresponsibility is extremely reckless. Governor Tim Walz has my phone number. I have called him and talked to him and said, listen, you let your city burn down in 2020. Don't do it again.
I want to bring on Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel, Talking Feds Substack, and Talking Feds podcast. Now, Harry
Litman. Harry Litman is the voice you're going to hear now. Again, this is courtesy of Midas Touch.
You have the acting head of ICE now saying that this was all a lie. We just played the clip of Kristi Noem saying the lie. She ratified it on camera. This wasn't like all of a sudden they said, let's do the good thing. It was, they tried to deport all of the witnesses as well. The witnesses were then attacked with deportation. That got blocked. The body cam and the other video footage was identified. All of this was not body cam. There's other video footage in the area. And that was determined this was all a lie. And here we are right now. And by the way, Harry, I think that if they didn't murder Alex Pretty, and the attention wasn't focused now on Minnesota the way it was, this is something that would have been swept. Under the rug. But now, also with all these Minnesota prosecutors resigning and all of the pressure there, they tried their darndest to cover this up, but they couldn't.
100%. Imagine, Ben, a world without video, or without the dozens of video, which are as a big part of what the protesters are doing in the street to chronicle it. This is so far upriver from any normal government and department of... Maybe you'd have to probe, etc. But the reflexiveness of the complete absolute fiction. And then don't you love that extra little step of, as she did on Fox, as she did on her statement, blaming it all, the it, of course, being complete fiction, on Walz and on the governor of Minnesota. So just making it into a political football. This is...
So for that full video, again, please make sure that you visit the Midas Touch. Again, the Midas Touch for more on Kristi Noem.
Straight out of the playbook of totalitarian systems.
Being thrown under the bus. Again, you can make your thoughts and opinions as to whether or not you believe ICE has thrown Kristi Noem under the bus, or again, it's just more political theater. We are at our first hour mark, as I mentioned. We have a lot to unpack, so we are going to go on a short break. For those of you who may need some tea or some coffee, some of you that might still be nibbling on Valentine's dinner or sweets, I have some chocolate-covered strawberries downstairs that I haven't even gone into yet, but I think I think that I may nibble on a couple of those. So we will be back shortly. Again, this is the Week in Review. I am your hostess, Lise. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in. Members, thank you so much for all of your support. Subscribers, thank you so much for all of your support. And again, those of you who come by from time to time to engage, to make your comments and say mean things every now and again, you're welcome to. Again, just please be respectful. And when I say respectful, watch how far you go with any type of name calling or any vile remarks, because you will be placed in timeout, and depending upon the severity of your comments, you will be banned and you will not be able to come back to this platform unless you go under a troll account. And again, I'm going to say this. I would strongly encourage you to be careful when making up troll accounts. I don't know what other creators are doing and who they may have on their team, but I wouldn't encourage that here. No. We'll be back. And again, thank you so much for tuning in. And we are back. We are back with the weekend review. I am your hostess, Lise. Hopefully, you have had the opportunity to get yourself a beverage, some snacks, or perhaps some good old fresh water, either room temperature, refrigerated with some ice cubes, or whatever you like to sip on. Again, welcome back. We are now going to pivot to, can you guess? Pam Bondi. This hearing was explosive and very, very heated throughout. So we're going to listen to some of that. But before we do, of course, I have a couple of slides for you. Attorney General Pam Bondi is facing a wave of backlash from many in the conservative media ecosystem following her testimony this week before the House Judiciary Committee about the Department of Justice's handling of the J.E. files. During a contentious hearing Wednesday, Bondi sparred, and yes, she did, with lawmakers over the release of the files and beat back accusations of a cover-up relating to the SEX offender and financier. Next. When the Attorney General of the United States is asked why she hasn't prosecuted no one, not one, not even one, related to J.E., and this is her answer: she should be fired or resign, according to Eric Erickson, who is a conservative radio host on X, formerly known as Twitter, attaching a clip of Bondi talking about the recent success of the stock market. That, to me, was hilarious. Of all the questions being asked, she went to the stock market. Unbelievable. But let's continue. But neither will happen, which is another reason why Democrats are going to have a good election year, he added. Now, I'm not going to sit here and co-sign on that, because even with all of this information coming out, that doesn't declare a slam dunk, especially when you have people who have, what my mom used to say, other things up their sleeve. So we have to be careful with that. Tim Pool, an online influencer popular on the right, also criticized Bondi's performance in the hearing. So without further delay, we are going to get to this hearing, and it's going to be lengthy. So again, I thank each and every one of you who have remained, and some of those who may have drifted off somewhere else. Again, thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in, and let's get to this hearing. I'm going to put up something shortly to stop this gentleman in his tracks, and then we'll keep on going. The voice you will hear now is the voice of Chairman Mr. Jordan.
3 counties in the District of Columbia are sanctuary jurisdictions, accounting for 31% of the population in this country. 31% of the American people, almost 1/3 of the American people, live in a city, county, or state where the left-wing leadership tells local law enforcement not to work with federal law enforcement. Now, what does that mean in practice? Let's look at Abraham Gonzalez, who on September 20th, 2023, was arrested by Border Patrol for illegally entering the United States. And of course, the Biden administration released him into the country. 5 months later, February 26, 2024, Mr. Gonzalez is charged with assault. 2 weeks later, March 11, 2024, he's charged with felony motor vehicle theft, stole a car. And on March 20th, 2024, 9 days later, he's arrested by the Denver police and placed in the Denver Justice Center. 6 days later, March 22nd, 2024, ICE sends a detainer notice to the Denver Justice Center saying this: if you're going to release Mr. Gonzalez, can you give us a heads up? Can you let us know maybe 48 hours before you're going to release this guy so we can come apprehend him there at the jail? And remember, a detainer is a final order of removal from a court where this individual or this individual's committed some removable offense. But on February 28th, 2025, Abraham Gonzalez is released to the streets. In fact, we can put that up. I think you can see this. Released, we got the form from the Denver Justice Center. What kind of inmate was Mr. Gonzalez for those 345 days that he was in the Denver Justice Center? We have that too. Violent to the staff, keep separate. So this guy was so bad, you had to keep him away from other inmates. He'd already assaulted some staff member, but Denver released this guy to the streets and instead of turning him over to ICE agents who would have come to the jail and arrested him there. And of course, we all know what happens. When the officers did apprehend Mr. Gonzalez out on the street, he assaulted one of the officers. This is what happens when you have a sanctuary jurisdiction. Right now in Minnesota, there are 1,360 detainer notices for violent offenders. Governor Walz and others have released 470 criminal illegal aliens back to the streets. In New York State, it's 7,000. Nationwide, it's over 17,000 that we know of. Where a detainer was filed, since President Trump's been in office, over 17,000 times a detainer was filed, and those individuals were released to the streets instead of turned over to federal law enforcement. 17,864 times. Illegals who've been charged with the crime have been released to the streets, and thereby jeopardizing the safety of the public, the safety of law enforcement, and of course the migrant themselves. And frankly, helping create the environment that results in the tragic deaths like we saw with Miss Good and Mr. Preddy.
So, Mr. Jordan, you mentioned about ICE detainers and the responsibility and the Biden administration. I understand that. I absolutely do. But this isn't the Biden administration. We are in the Trump administration. Again, I understand about the amount of people here illegally. But who's going to take responsibility for not doing their due diligence? Now, you just spoke about Abraham. I want to take you back to a case that happened not too far from Washington, D.C. This case is It's emotional to me, number one, because I've had boots to the ground with this and many others in this area. Something was not right then, and it's not right now. Nancy Grace covered it for a while, as well as other content creators, but for some reason, Mr. Jordan, it died down. And it begs the question, who is actually responsible for, as you say, illegals with backgrounds being released back out where they could potentially cause irreparable harm to others? Let me remind you of the case of 19-year-old Takara Thompson. Do you remember this case? Caroline Levitt spoke on it, from my recollection, once. Ugo Renee Hernandez Mendez has been charged in the unaliving of 19-year-old Takara Thompson. She went missing, and it was about a week before she was found and identified as the missing young woman who was unalived, allegedly by Hernandez Mendez. But there's something odd about this case. He had a DC license. He worked in Baltimore, allegedly, and I must say allegedly, and let me add in unconfirmed reports say he worked as a landscaper in Baltimore. Was stopped in April for DUI by the United States Park Police, but was released. Did they not check his status? So many people are looking at those for tattoos. Look at this man's face and the scars. Did that trigger anyone to think something may not be right with this individual? Now, there were rumors, which I am not going to bring up because that's exactly what they are, about, 19-year-old Takara Thompson, whose life was brutally taken, allegedly, from the actions of Ugo Hernandez Mendez. Now, the United States Park Police is a unit of the National Park Service. I want you to pay attention to how all of these are connected. It serves as a federal law enforcement agency with jurisdiction over national parks, monuments, primarily in Washington, D.C., New York City, and San Francisco, under the Department of the Interior, National Park Service. established in 1971. Dakar Thompson went missing. And according to ring cam footage, and I'm going to do another video on this, it was said she went to the vehicle, allegedly, of Hugo Hernandez Mendez. They ended up at his home in Bowie, Maryland. After some acts allegedly took place, she was found tossed away like a piece of trash. I traced every step provided by the police. And I don't understand to this day how this could have happened. Number one, if indeed Hernandez Mendez is or was illegal, did they not check his status? And why, if DUI was truly why they pulled him over, why was he released? The end result was the loss of life of Dakara Thompson. Let's continue. But remember, this case, the trial, unless it's reset, is slated for March, and I will definitely be there again. I was there the first two hearings. I was at the funeral, and as I mentioned, I retraced all of the steps, and something was not right. County executive of Prince George's County said any questions should go to the DOJ. In other words, the federales are handling this. Let's continue. The voice you hear next is that of Ranking Member Mr. Raskin.
Waste 1 second of our precious time by evading questions, by changing the subject.
So he already came out locked and loaded, knowing her playbook, knowing that she would indeed come out with her binder, if you will, evading questions and attacking those asking questions. Raskin knew it and let her know before she had the chance to open up her mouth not to waste their time.
Against members of Congress. We saw your performance in the Senate, and we're not going to accept that. This isn't a game. In the Senate, you brought something with you called a burn book, a binder of smears to attack members personally for doing the people's work of oversight.
The burn book.
Please set the burn book aside and answer our questions. And when you hear us reclaim our time, that means you stop. And if you don't, we will ask the chair to stop the clock and let you go on his time.
And so much time was reclaimed. This was unreal, but let us continue.
Quality of justice in America depends on the character of our government. Please do your job and bring the Department of Justice back from the brink. The survivors seated behind you and the American people watching everywhere deserve a Department of Justice worthy of its name. I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Without objection, all of the opening statements will be included in the record. We will now introduce today's witness. The Honorable Pamela J. Bondi has served as the Attorney General of the United States since February 5th, 2025. She previously served in the Office of the White House Counsel, 2 terms as Florida Attorney General, and spent more than 18 years as a prosecutor. We welcome our witness and thank her for appearing today. We will begin by swearing you in. Would you please rise and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief, so help you God? That's a record
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Jordan, Ranking Member Raskin, and distinguished members of this committee. Thank you for hosting me here today. I'm grateful for the opportunity to answer your questions, highlight the work of our department, and discuss the most important topic of all, keeping the American people safe. A little over a year ago, I was sworn into office as the 87th Attorney General of the United States. I came into office with the goal of refocusing the Department of Justice on its core mission after years of bloated bureaucracy and political weaponization.
We're going to extend this a little bit.
And the results came quickly. Crime plummeted in both cities. And I want to make one point loud and clear. We achieved those results by working with Democratic mayors. Public safety does not have a party registration. When your constituents call 911, they don't ask for political views of the responding officer. They ask for help. I have federal agents in each and every one of your districts. They're here to help, and I am here to help.
Okay. I'm going to extend a little bit further.
Protecting the names of abusers.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
Brought to justice, but enormous resources.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
So let's get back a little bit further. Okay.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
I have a UC, Mr. Chairman.
And that is the gentlelady from Texas.
I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record. El Paso airspace reopened after FAA quickly rescinds 10-day flights restriction. This was published by the Texas Tribune on February 11th, 2026. And it says it was because of an impasse with the DOD over the use of unmanned military aircraft and not triggered by Mexican cartel drones.
Without objection.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I didn't hear back about the second round of questions. I assume that's not happening. I just want to be able to assure the members, certainly on my side, if not both sides.
That's not a point of order.
No, that every member will get 5 minutes with the witness. Will there be 5 minutes for each?
Yeah, you get 5 minutes. Yeah.
With the witness. Okay, very good.
Yeah. Okay. And are you up next? Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I want to begin by acknowledging this.
The voice you heard earlier was that of Jasmine Crockett. Again, that was Jasmine Crockett you heard speaking earlier.
Survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's horrific abuse who are in the room with us today. I want to thank all of you for your bravery in speaking out. I want to say that you and the other survivors of these heinous crimes deserve better from this Department of Justice. In particular, it is shocking that the department did not redact the names of Epstein's victims, but it did redact the names of their abusers. I don't know whether
And
this was
that
done out
was,
of incompetence.
so I'm sorry, that was the question of many people who reviewed this hearing and the testimony of Pam Bondi earlier this week. And some people surmised that this may have been a deliberate attempt. Again, I'm not saying nor implying that it was, but there are many people that feel as though it could have been an attempt perhaps to silence those who came forward and to continue to protect those who committed these horrible, horrible crimes against the victims who are survivors now. Let's continue.
Or whether it was deliberate and malicious. But either way, it is completely unacceptable. Even more troubling, the DOJ has failed to bring any of these perpetrators to justice. Instead, it has engaged in a relentless pursuit of Donald Trump's perceived enemies. I want to focus on just one example. The Attorney General of my home state of New York, Tish James. This DOJ has been hell-bent on securing an indictment against Ms. James for something, anything, simply because she held Donald Trump's companies accountable for years of financial fraud.
I mentioned Letitia James earlier and James Comey earlier, and the failure of Lindsay Halligan. Please remember that name, Lindsay Halligan.
And indeed, the department manufactured an investigation against her for alleged, quote, mortgage fraud. But the U.S. attorney leading the investigation, Eric Siebert, a Trump appointee, refused to bring charges against Ms. James because there was simply no evidence. Unfortunately, a prosecutor who refuses to do Trump's bidding has no place in this DOJ, so Mr. Siebert was forced out. Trump could not contain his fury that he expressed to you in a social media post addressed to you by name. I'm sure you've seen it. Quote, I fired him and there is a great case, he wrote to you about Mr. Siebert. Then we moved down. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now.
And let me remind you of
you got to win the midterms, because if we don't win the midterms, it's just going to be, I mean, they'll find a reason to impeach me. You got to win the midterms, because if we don't win the midterms, it's just going to be, I mean, they'll find a reason to impeach me. You got to win the midterms, because if we don't win the midterms, it's just going to be, I mean, they'll find a reason to impeach me. You got.
I know you lying. I know you lying. I know you lying. I know you lying. I know.
And we're going to continue with the testimony of Pam Bondi. However, the voice you hear right now is that of Mr. Naylor.
Obviously, you followed that order. Lindsay Halligan, Trump's former defense lawyer who had never prosecuted a case in her life, was installed to replace Mr. Siebert, and it was clear that part of her mandate was to go after Ms. James. Halligan immediately sought an indictment, which the court dismissed because Halligan was illegally put into the role.
Illegally. Caroline Leavitt. Caroline Leavitt so boldly spoke that Lindsay Halligan was placed properly. However, we later learned that as many things that Caroline Leavitt has said was proven to be not the case. No, not at all. Let's continue.
Your department was undeterred. Not once, but twice, tried to indict Attorney General James in separate courts. Both grand juries rejected you and refused to indict her. It is practically unheard of for a grand jury to refuse an indictment. In 2016, it happened in just 6 cases out of over 150,000 offenses. And you had it happen twice in the same week, in 2 different courts. That must have been humiliating. And now there are reports you are continuing to investigate her. The amount of resources that have gone into targeting Attorney General James, months of investigations, multiple failed indictments, is astounding. Since your own prosecutors told you that there is not enough evidence to support a conviction, it's clear that you were going after her simply because he held President Trump accountable and he wants to punish her. And she is just one name on a long list of Trump political enemies that DOJ is reportedly targeting. From Jerome Powell and Lisa Cook at the Federal Reserve to James Comey, numerous Democratic members of Congress, John Brennan, Jack Smith, Democratic officials in Minnesota, Chris Krebs, Miles Taylors, and more. Those are just the ones we know about. In contrast to these politically motivated investigations, grasping at something they can charge their enemies with, we now have concrete evidence of disgusting criminality revealed in the Epstein files. So I really have just one question for you. How many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted? How many perpetrators are you even investigating?
And we're going to wait for the response of Pam Bondi.
First, you showed it. I find it.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my.
So she started off with the finger and said, first, I'm going to, I don't want to seem as though I'm embellishing. So I'm going to let you see for yourself. I'm sure many of you have seen this, but if you haven't, I'll present it for you. It's my pleasure to do so.
Did they use probable cause? Did they use reasonable articulable suspicion? Or did they have no individualized suspicion and just were gathering up information? And that's beyond the investigation with regarding Arctic Frost. I don't expect you to have that information today, but if you can help get that information so we.
That's not what I want.
Name a few, and you snap to it. You replace real prosecutors with counterfeit stooges who robotically do the president's bidding. Nothing in American history comes close to this complete corruption of the justice function and contamination of federal law enforcement. And the good news is many.
The numbers tell an important yet straightforward story. I have federal agents in each and every one of your districts. They're here to help, and I am here to help. Many cities and states have worked with us and taken advantage of our federal support. Some have not. Meanwhile, a few elected officials have declared that they are, quote, at war with the federal government and encouraged widespread obstruction of law enforcement. This has resulted in avoidable clashes on the streets, as you've all seen. We've seen rioters storming a Christian church. Citizens and law enforcement officers have both been endangered by reckless rhetoric. We have made dozens of arrests in and around Minneapolis so far, and many of them could have been avoided by simple compliance with federal law. In DC and in Memphis. These are two.
I may have missed it, but you get the gist of what's going on here.
Charges. So you forced him out. You replaced him with Lindsay Halligan, Trump's personal lawyer from the Mar-a-Lago documents case, who had zero prosecutorial experience and no qualifications. And then you were humiliated when a federal judge found that this corrupt appointment was blatantly unlawful and threw out Halligan's indictments entirely. And grand juries of American citizens have repeatedly rejected your vendettas and baseless indictments brought by the hacks left at DOJ now, with two different grand juries in Virginia voting down indictments against Letitia James in a single week. And just yesterday, another grand jury shut down your vendetta factory by rejecting indictments against the 6 members of Congress who had spoken out to remind all service members that they have a duty to refuse illegal orders. You tried to get a grand jury to indict 6 members of Congress who are veterans of our armed forces on charges of seditious conspiracy simply for exercising their First Amendment rights. I hope you will heed the wisdom and the constitutional patriotism of those grand jurors and not try it again by doubling down on that humiliation. As your best lawyers are sacked for having participated in the January 6th case or just flee for the exits now, your new lawyers keep lying in court. In dozens of cases, they've been excoriated for lying to federal judges. Chief Judge Boasberg, right here in DC, suggested your Department of Justice perpetrated a fraud on the court. Other judges found your statements to be, quote, inexplicably misleading, patently incredible, totally inconsistent, and so disingenuous that the court is left with little confidence that the government can be trusted to tell the truth about anything.
And we're going to listen to a clip from Chandra R. Again, Chandra R. from TikTok. I think this is a very well put question.
To some of them ladies in this White House administration, Kristi Noem, Pam Bondi, Caroline Leavitt, baby, what is in it for y'all? The reason why y'all protect these PDFers. What is in it? Because it just continues to blow me away that you women, who I'm sure have kids, is protecting men that does bad things to kids. And you are a parent yourself. I'm sure out of the 3 of y'all are parents. So again, what is in it for y'all?
Let's continue. This is the testimony of Pam Bondi. This is the Weekend Review. I'm your hostess, Lise. Thank you so much for tuning in. And let's continue.
Now, as ranking member, I asked the chairman to add a few extra rounds of questions today because we each have 5 hours of questions, not 5 minutes, but we're stuck with 5 minutes. That's clearly insufficient to give voice to America's victims and survivors and to demand answers about all the corruption and cover-ups that we see at DOJ right now. We've got just one round, so we ask you politely but firmly, Madam Attorney General, please do not waste 1 second of our precious time by evading questions, by changing the subject, or engaging in personal attacks against members of Congress. We saw your performance in the Senate, and we're not going to accept that. This isn't a game. In the Senate, you brought something with you called a burn book, a binder of smears to attack members personally for doing the people's work of oversight. Please set the burn book aside and answer our questions. And when you hear us reclaim our time, that means it's time for you to stop speaking. We only have 5 minutes, so when we reclaim our time, that means you stop. And if you don't, we will ask the chair to stop the clock and let you go on his time. The quality of justice in America depends on the character of our government. Please do your job and bring the Department of Justice back from the brink. The survivors seated behind you and the American people watching everywhere deserve a Department of Justice worthy of its name. I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Without objection, all of the opening statements will be included in the record. We will now introduce today's witness. The Honorable Pamela J. Bondi has served as the Attorney General of the United States since February 5th, 2025. She previously served in the Office of the White House Counsel, 2 terms as the Florida Attorney General, and spent more than 18 years as a prosecutor. We welcome our witness and thank her for appearing today. We will begin by swearing you in. Would you please rise and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief, so help you God? I do. Let the record show that the witness has answered in the affirmative. Thank you. You can be seated. And please know that your written testimony will be entered into the record in its entirety. Accordingly, we ask that you summarize your testimony. Madam Attorney General, you may begin.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Jordan, Ranking Member Raskin, and distinguished members of this committee. Thank you for hosting me here today. I'm grateful for the opportunity to answer your questions, highlight the work of our department, and discuss the most important topic of all, keeping the American people safe. A little over a year ago, I was sworn into office as the 87th Attorney General of the United States. I came into office with the goal of refocusing the Department of Justice on its core mission after years of bloated bureaucracy and political weaponization. The Department of Justice's core mission is to fight violent crime, protect the American people, and defend the rule of law above all else. While our work is never done, we have made tremendous progress to make America safe again. In 2025, we saw the lowest murder rate in 125 years. That's nothing short of historic. If you compare 25 to 24, here's what you'll find. The murder rate is down 21%, robbery down 23%, carjacking down 43%, gun assault down 22%, ag assault, burglary, could go on and on. Crime is declining. This did not happen by accident. The numbers tell an important yet straightforward story. President Trump has given us the resources, the support, and the leadership to protect the American people. President Trump's policies have saved lives. I cannot think of a policy outcome more important than protecting the lives of American citizens. Can you? This trend has been especially clear in Washington, D.C. and in Memphis. These are 2 iconic American cities that spent years in the grip of horrific violent crime. The Department of Justice surged law enforcement resources, and the results came quickly. Crime plummeted in both cities. And I want to make one point loud and clear. We achieved those results by working with Democratic mayors. Public safety does not have a party registration. When your constituents call 911, they don't ask for political views of the responding officer. They ask for help. I have federal agents in each and every one of your districts. They're here to help, and I am here to help. Many cities and states have worked with us and taken advantage of our federal support. Some have not. Meanwhile, a few elected officials have declared that they are, quote, at war with the federal government and encouraged widespread obstruction of law enforcement. This has resulted in avoidable clashes on the streets, as you've all seen. We've seen rioters storming a Christian church. Citizens and law enforcement officers
I wonder if she's aware that a particular influence went to Baltimore to a recovery addiction anonymous meeting. Again, do your research. I thought when you attend these meetings to get help that you should not be filmed. But there's a certain individual that has gone around Was there any outrage or any questions about this particular social media influence? Oh, a mess. So many followers. When he went to Baltimore and interrupted a meeting of those trying to get clean from their addictions, I thought that was sacred as well. It says anonymous for a reason. Is anyone even going to speak on that? Highly doubtful. Let's continue.
have both been endangered by reckless rhetoric. We have made dozens of arrests and many of them could have been avoided by simple compliance with federal law. Of course, our efforts reach beyond our urban centers. We are striking crucial blows against terrorist organizations such as MS-13, TDA, the Sinaloa Cartel, and Antifa. And as we sit here, I think you've seen the news this morning. The news is reporting that cartel drones are being shot down by our military. That's what we all should care about right now, protecting America. As we seek to dismantle these drug trafficking networks that poison Americans, in 2025, our DEA agents seized more than 47 million fentanyl pills and more than 9,800 total kilos of fentanyl. That represents 369.
Who brought those in? What doctors and providers were behind that? Have you investigated that? Just curious.
9 million potentially deadly doses that can kill Americans. Meanwhile, our attorneys are fighting for President Trump's agenda in courtrooms across this country. This administration has been sued 627 times. We've fought through a nonstop flood of bad faith temporary restraining orders from liberal activist judges across this country, America has never seen this level of coordinated judicial opposition towards a presidential administration. It is not only an unlawful attack on the executive branch's authority, but a serious attack on the democratic process. In spite of this unprecedented judicial activism, we've attained 24 favorable rulings at the U.S. Supreme Court, their emergency docket, and even more to come. We've done so while ending the weaponization of the prior administration by dropping FASAC prosecutions, exposing the Arctic frost scandal via congressional disclosure, thank you, Chairman, and restoring one tier of justice in this country. To address the Epstein files, more than 500 attorneys and reviewers spent thousands of hours painstakingly reviewing millions of pages
by invitation, and it was alleged that their reviews were being monitored. I wonder what the motivation is and was behind that. We are now in our second hour. We're going to take a quick break. Again, for those of you who may need to drink some tea, get a snack, or just stretch your legs. This is the Week in Review. I'm your hostess, Lise, and we will be back shortly. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we are back listening to the testimony of Attorney General Pam Bondi.
The gentleman is going to give you time to respond to
Thank you, Chairman.
all kinds of things. So we will turn to the gentleman from Texas for 5 minutes.
Ms. Bondi, you go right ahead. I'm over here. Time is yours.
Thank you. First, he brought up the president saying they indicted me twice. They sure did. They tried to impeach him twice. And you, Mr. Nadler, were one of the leads on the impeachment. I was on the other side. I lived that with you. During impeachment, you said the president conspired, sought foreign interference in the 2016 election. Robert Mueller found no evidence, none, of foreign interference in 2016. Have you apologized to President Trump? Have you apologized to President Trump, all of you who participated in those impeachment hearings against Donald Trump? You all should be apologizing. You sit here and you attack the president, and I am not going to have it. I'm not going to put up with it. You know, all they want to do, all the American people need to know this. They are talking about Epstein today. This has been around since the Obama administration.
This is not the Obama administration.
Administration released over 3 million pages of documents, over 3 million. And Donald Trump signed that law to release all of those documents. He is the most transparent president in the nation's history.
You got to win the midterms, because if we don't win the midterms, it's just going to be, I mean, they'll find a reason to impeach me.
And none of them asked Merrick Garland over the last 4 years one word about Jeffrey Epstein. How ironic is that? You know why? Because Donald Trump, the Dow right now is over. The Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing. You're a great stock trader, as I hear, Raskin. The Dow is over.
Because it was a foolish thing to say. What is the Dow right now? Let's continue.
50,000 right now. The S&P at almost 7,000. And the NASDAQ smashing records. Americans' 401ks and retirement savings are booming. That's what we should be talking about. We should be talking about making Americans safe. We should be talking about, what does a Dow have to do with anything? That's what they just asked. Are you kidding?
Mr. Jordan, Mr. Jordan.
Committee will be in order.
Mr. Jordan, am I going to get an extra 45 seconds added to my time?
Committee will be in order. The time belongs to the gentleman from Texas. Ms. Bondi, the Attorney General can respond.
Thank you. The Dow has shattered 50,000 for the first time. This is crazy. They said it couldn't be done in 4 years, yet President Trump has done it in 1 year. National median rents have fallen to a 4-year low thanks to Donald Trump.
Where?
That's why they want to focus on Epstein and our most transparent president in the nation's history.
When you were campaigning, respectfully, Ms. Bondi, you said that one of your most important areas to tackle was the harming of children. Did you remember that?
The murder rate, as I said, has plummeted to a 125-year low thanks to Donald Trump. For an unprecedented 9 straight.
Did you just say unprecedented? Seems like you're stuttering a little bit there, Cammy.
months, there were 0 illegal border crossings at the southern border.
I hope you have receipts to support that.
That's what we should be focused on. All the great work that this president has done and will continue to do to keep America safe and to make Americans safe.
Thank you, Attorney General Bondi. I agree with you totally. I think you've done a fine job. I think that Democrats, in fact, should be apologizing to the Epstein victims for doing nothing during the 4 years that they were running the government. We did not hear about this, and it took you and President Trump to finally provide transparency and give answers to the American people, and I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you also for standing up for truth today and for fighting back against the theatrics and the time waste that you will endure over the next hour or two. I want to apologize on behalf of my colleagues on the left there. I say very clearly, 80 seconds to Chairman Jordan.
And I would just yield to the Attorney General.
I'm fine to continue. Thank you, Chairman.
All right. The chair now recognizes, the gentleman yields back. The chair recognizes the gentlelady from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would note that Mr. Nadler's question has not yet been answered, but I want to start by asking that out of respect to the American public and the Epstein survivors, some of whom, of course, are here today, that we can have a transparent conversation and get the public the answers they deserve. I want to briefly direct your attention to 2 documents I'm hoping we will put up on the screen. In the first, an individual emails Jeffrey Epstein asking whether a woman identified as M was pro or civilian, and Epstein responds that she was a civilian, Russian, and fun. In the second email, Epstein writes to Steve Tisch about a Ukrainian girl, noting that she was, quote, a little freaked out by the age difference and stating that he would try to convince her not to return to Ukraine. He then instructs Mr. Tisch to call him, adding, I don't like records of these conversations. So I'd like to ask a straightforward question that really is either a yes or no answer. Do these emails constitute credible evidence, not proof, but credible evidence warning further investigation into whether Steve Tisch was involved in Epstein's criminal conduct? You think yes or no?
I'm not going to play a yes-no game with you, but I will answer the question to the best of my ability. As I said, we will look and investigate any case involving any victim.
Another pattern of refusal to answer a question. Dancing around, in my opinion.
I'm not familiar. There were 3 million pages, of course, with that email. But of course, we will look into anything. The documents have been released, 3 million. The redacted versions, we left them open for all of you to come view. Have you? I believe you view them. If not, will you have some copies?
I'd like to.
But can I finish, please? I'm not being rude.
I only have 5 minutes.
No, yeah, and I only have 30 seconds based on your filibuster.
But you didn't give a yes or no answer. So let me just go further. Director Patel testified in this committee room that there was no credible information indicating that Epstein trafficked victims to anyone else. And glancing at the documents, that's proof that's not the case. In July, your
earmark that.
Department issued a memo stating that it had conducted an exhaustive review of the Epstein files and concluded that no additional individuals would be charged. So I did go over to the Department of Justice yesterday. I would note that 400 and all our 35 members are in the House, and there's 4 computers. So it would take many months to actually have the time. I only had a few hours. I think the transparency argument is really kind of a sham because it's not really.
Whoa! Did you have to wait to get a computer?
It is not possible to
Hang on.
to really go in. I did, however, see a U.S. attorney information for the Southern District of New York indicating that there were additional survivors and probable co-conspirators. Other members of Congress have uncovered likely co-conspirators whose names were blocked out. Now, the Epstein File Transparency Act, which all but one member of this House voted for and the president signed, requires the department to release everything except that it needs to be redacted to protect the victims or an ongoing prosecution, which apparently there is none from the testimony we have received. I am concerned that this act has not been fully complied with. When Director Patel came to the committee, he admitted that up to 1,000 FBI agents had gone through the files and redacted President Trump's name from them. And it's pretty clear.
Kash Patel, his own admission.
That what has been transmitted from the FBI continues to redact President Trump's name, even though he is mentioned, thousands of times in these files. So I think the credibility of the department in terms of complying with the act has been damaged. And I think the department's credibility has been damaged in other ways. I think we all saw the horrible video of American citizens being killed by ICE agents in Minneapolis. And I think how the department has handled these cases raises a lot of doubt about the department. State and local police in Minnesota got a court order to get access to the crime scene to be sure evidence would be properly preserved by federal agents. But they took the agents defied the court order, and in a departure from general policy, the DOJ is not collaborating with state and local law enforcement on these homicides. So I really think that is a disgraceful approach to the homicides of American citizens, and really does nothing to bring credit to your department. And Mr. Chairman, I would yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
May I answer?
Attorney General can respond.
I find it interesting that she keeps going after President Trump, the greatest president in American history. And if they could maintain their composure, this isn't a circus. This is a hearing. I find it interesting she keeps going after Donald Trump. She doesn't say how much money she took from Reid Hoffman, did you? And nor did
Mr.
she
Chairman,
post
regular
anything.
order, please.
She
Regular order.
posted nothing on her X account, on her Twitter account during the Biden years.
Gentle lady.
And yet now
there
all
was
of
no
a sudden
question
she's
asked.
going after
Committee will be in
point of
order.
There was no question
Committee will be in
asked
order.
the Attorney General. She doesn't just get to
Committee will be in order.
I have a point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Committee will be in order.
Point of order, Mr.
Gentle
Chairman.
lady can state her point of order.
When a witness attacks,
Not a valid point of order. You got to state.
She hasn't completed her point of order yet. Please let her speak, Mr. Chairman. Let's have some regular order here.
Regular order is you got to state the rule. And
I am trying to make a point of order that the witness,
What
without
rule are you referring to?
without responding to a question, has attacked me personally. I think it's pathetic that she can't answer the questions and
First
instead
time
is
that
attacking
is not even close
members
to a
of the
point of order. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
In August of last year, I sent a letter to the Department of Justice asking for assistance in seeking compensation for the town of Lac du Flambeau. Town of Lac du Flambeau is my district, and your office replied that it was an ongoing matter and unable to comment on it, which I understand. It's just fine. But I want to set this up just as a reminder. So 3 years ago, it was at this time of year that 4 roads were blockaded in the town of Lac du Flambeau, and the temperature was 25 below zero. People had to park their cars at a neighbor's place, take the snowmobile across the lake to get their car, and then be able to drive into town. There were people 80 and 90 years old that could not, were very concerned that they'd be able to get emergency medical services. And the perpetrators of this, the tribe out there, they demanded compensation from the town. I would call it extortion. They ultimately got $600,000 from the town of Lac du Flambeau. The unfortunate part, Mr. Chairman, is that the Biden administration took the side of the perpetrators who closed those roads off. And the Biden administration made it clear to the town of Lac du Flambeau that we are.
And they're back talking about the Biden administration, which again, I can understand, but we're in a new administration right now, and Pam Bondi was just bragging and setting the tone for how much our president has done for the country. So I would think after such a wonderful presentation that you would keep it on the current administration. Let's continue.
From California related, we can all relate to, and it's unfortunate, it's wrong, as the Attorney General said, and we appreciate the help we get from the Justice Department. With that, we will now recognize the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Van Drew.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't know where to begin. Thank you for being here, General. Right, see me when I'm right in front of you. I have to mention this first. You know, I used this word before, and my friends on the other side of the aisle got mad at me. But hypocrisy. Epstein, Epstein, Epstein. But for years on the other side of the aisle, we heard nothing. Crickets, not a word. Nothing was said when they were in control. Nothing was mentioned basically the last summer, and the ranking member points out that he did do something last year. Yeah, he did a letter complaining about the plea deal for Maxwell. But it wasn't a big deal. Then we get a new administration, and all of a sudden it's a big deal, and they feign concern, they're upset, they're investigating. They had all these years and all this time. And in fact, Stacey Plaskett, and we all know that name, when they had a congressional hearing, Democratic member, were taking texts from Epstein on questions to ask to go after Trump. So Epstein was using her Democratic colleague as a tool to go after President Trump. Just everybody keep that in mind. And then we talk about ICE and how horrible it is. And there are concerns. Everybody wants everything to go right. Nobody ever wants to see somebody die.
I would have to disagree with you, Mr. Van Drew. There are people that have made fun of and continues to make fun of the passing of those who have passed away violently by those members. Let's continue.
And they complain about it. But at the same time, hypocrisy, they encourage constituents to go after the ICE agents, to challenge them, to hurt them, to attack them. And that doesn't make sense. That's hypocrisy. And then we hear about the concern of, you know, going after Democrats, that the legal system, that judiciary and Department of Justice is going after Democrats. But they literally rework the legal system under Alvin Bragg and Letitia James to go after Republicans and those sympathetic to Republicans. So, I mean, be careful when you accuse others that you're not guilty yourself.
I couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely. And this is why we are where we are today.
On that, and I would refer everyone to Deputy Attorney General Blanche's memo, and we're working as hard as we can on that topic.
We want to lead the way in the space on that, so we appreciate the help. Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back 10 seconds.
Gentleman yields back. Recognize Jump for Arizona for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a number of UCs.
Gentleman can proceed.
Thank you. Bombshell new docs show Trump called police about Epstein in 2006.
Objection.
Kamala Harris defends Biden administration decision not to release Epstein files.
Objection.
Why weren't they released during the Biden administration?
Objection.
House Democrat Stacey Plaskett exchanged texts with Epstein during 2019 congressional hearing.
Objection.
New York judge allows Epstein victims' claims against Plaskett to proceed.
Objection.
Hakeem Jeffries solicited funding from Epstein in 2013 after financier was convicted child sex offender.
Objection.
Jeffrey.
Now, as I mentioned, I repeat, I am not a fan of Hakeem Jeffries. I play a lot of clips and snippets from him, but he too, and I've said this, he tends, in my opinion, to talk a lot and talk and talk and talk, but I don't really see a lot of action. And it seems like, again, in my opinion, that he has straddled the fence, and it made me question at one point in time, and still in the back of my head, is there something going on with him that we may not know about? I'm just asking questions.
Epstein was invited to dim fundraising dinner and to get to know Hakeem Jeffries by firm working with Brooklyn's Barack. Objection. An email from Leslie Groff to Jeffrey Epstein concerning Hakeem Jeffries fundraising. Epstein file says Biden was replaced in 2019, question mark?
Objection.
Thank you.
Gentleman yields. Back the gentleman from California is recognized, Mr. Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Ms. A.G. Bondi. I agree with you. Our top priority should be protecting Americans. In my past life in the California State Legislature, I did a lot of work on solving sex crimes, passing legislation to update our codes. And I found that the biggest challenge to solving sex crimes is reporting them. Victims have to have the guts to stand up to report those sex crimes. But it's not easy. It's the most unreported sex crime there is. Crime there is sex crimes. It's painful, humiliating. A lot of time the victims don't think anything's gonna come out of their reporting these crimes. Then we have adults who as children were molested, boys and girls who will live in silence for the rest of their life.
That is and has been an ongoing problem. For those of you that may get triggered, I would probably encourage you strongly to not continue listening or return later on in the broadcast. Viewer and listening discretion highly advised. Again, this is the Week in Review. I'm your hostess, Lise. So glad to be spending this time with you on this holiday weekend. We are now Monday. So happy Monday to one and to all. Perhaps it is Tuesday, depending upon where you are on the globe.
I believe the Epstein files are just one of many sex rings, sex crimes taking place in our society today. I hear 1,200 Epstein victims, some additional victims as young as 9 to 10 years old. The challenge I have today, what bothers me today about this hearing, Madam AG, is what's the message we're sending out there on Main Street? Shouldn't ask a question I don't know an answer to, but I'm going to ask the victims behind you right now. First, can you please stand up? And then, can you please raise your hand if you think after everything you've heard today, you feel that our AG, the feds have your back? Do we have your back? Raise your hand if you're confident that we got your back. And that's the issue, Madam AG. We've got to make sure that victims stand up and report the crimes. Otherwise, we're going to be taking a step backwards. Today, AI, cyber, social media, the new realm for people to be hurt, attacked sexually. These are the areas I'd welcome the opportunity to work with you on. It's not your problem. It's not my problem. It's our problem. But to have redacted files that are not showing us the names of these predators is wrong. These are very powerful people. This was a very expensive business, and we don't know who they are.
So those were some of the highlights from the hearing, the explosive hearing with AG Pam Bondi. You can find that entire hearing courtesy of CBS News. Again, CBS News. And we're going to grab a couple of comments. Badisha said, correction, she did not testify. She performed. There is a difference. Stacy Patton says, Pam is a new level of disgusting. She couldn't even acknowledge those survivors to apologize for their carelessness of putting those ladies' names in the released files. Again, my opinion, I do not believe it was by accident, but I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. Michael Tom says, I'm getting sick just listening to her. Jail now. DeBell says, the way she refuses to answer questions except for the ones she likes. It's about as helpful as Ghislaine Maxwell pleading the fifth for every question, but twice as annoying because all she does is deflect. John says she should be arrested for contempt of Congress. Kawili says, or asks, why did she have a folder of, quote, dirt, closed quote, on everyone that asked her a question she didn't want to answer? Speak for itself, really. And I am, Tangia says, did this lady come to testify with a binder of accusations for each member of their states? Wow. So now we are going to go and pivot to the next part of my broadcast. And we're going to listen to a couple of clips from Todd Blanche.
Mr. Lyons, were Renee Good and Alex Preddy domestic terrorists?
Ma'am, while that investigation's ongoing, to my knowledge, no.
So to your knowledge, no.
What, with the information, I can't speak to it because it's an ongoing investigation, and we will make everything transparent, which I've already committed to at the last hearing. But
so in your testimony on Tuesday, you said that you don't want to comment on these ongoing investigations because you don't want to, quote, impede or, quote, bias the investigation. Is that what you said? Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So Secretary Noem and Stephen Miller have called Renee Good and Alex Preddy domestic terrorists. So did Secretary Noem and Stephen Miller's comments impede or bias the investigations?
Ma'am, I don't want to comment on what comments they made. That's their comments. But again, I don't want to put my finger on the scales of the investigation and be too presidential.
I understand you don't speak for them, and I'm not asking you to. I'm asking whether having the Secretary of Homeland Security and the President's Homeland Security Advisor call the subjects of an ongoing investigation domestic terrorists, whether their doing that impedes or biases those investigations.
Ma'am, again, thank you for saying that I don't represent them. I just think I can't speak
but you
to
don't
that
speak for them.
Because I don't know what information was presented to them at that time. So again, I don't want to.
Look, your testimony doesn't make any sense. If it would impede or bias the investigations for you to say, right now, when you know a lot more than we did right after the shootings, whether Renee Good or Alex Preddy were domestic terrorists, if you saying that today would impede or bias the investigations, then why wouldn't it impede or bias the investigations for Secretary Noem and Stephen Miller to say the same thing about the same people?
Any comments that are made publicly, privately, text, email, or Instagram post, whatever, is gonna put a bias on the information.
Okay, so that is important. So I take it that you are saying that Secretary Noem and Stephen Miller were wrong to say what they said.
No, ma'am. Again, I can't speak to them, but what I'll just say to is, again, career law enforcement officer, myself and Mr. Scott, we won't speak to those type of things because we don't want to put our
Are you not kind of just being straightforward here and saying what's obvious because you're worried that if you do, you'll be fired?
Administration that he was attempting to inflict mass casualties. You have to explain how you had to come to that, how the Trump administration came to the conclusion that he may have been resisting when he was laying flat on his back with being beaten. How did they come to the fact that he was going to have those mass casualties? And then, quote, Secretary Noem said he was committing, quote, an act of domestic terrorism. What you saw in the video, is that what you train your officers? Someone laying on the ground, that's an act of domestic terrorism? Commissioner Scott and Acting Lyons, did you provide Secretary Noem with an assessment of what Mr. Petty was engaged in and that he was engaged in domestic terrorism? Is that why she said that? Is because you told her? That was your belief at that time? Even though you need an awful lot of investigation now to know exactly what happened. Are you the ones that told her that?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Did anyone who reports to either of you provide this assessment to Secretary Noem that this was mass casualty, or he was attempting to inflict mass casualties and domestic terrorism? Did someone in your staff tell her that?
Not to my knowledge, sir.
No, so why would Secretary Noem, why would she tell the public that this was an act of domestic terrorism when right in the heat of the moment? How would she possibly come to that kind of conclusion to tell the American public that when they're watching this video?
I can't speculate on what someone else would say or why, sir.
Mr. Lyons?
Sir, I can't speculate to what the Secretary thought at that time, sir.
So it seems to me a really big question, which means that we have to have Secretary Noem here. She deserves it. The American people deserve to have the Secretary, the person who is responsible to, you are responsible to, and all the men and women ICE answer to her. She needs to be before this committee. She ducks coming out in public and talking and hasn't accepted prior invitations to come to this committee. I would hope the chairman would invite her because this is an important question. How could you come to those conclusions, those narratives, before any evidence was there, even after all that's happened since then? You two are telling me you don't have enough evidence, even though it looks so clear on the video. It should have looked really clear to her if she looked at the video, if she had it that close. A lot of this got posted pretty quickly. How she came to those conclusions, I don't expect you to know that. You didn't provide any information to her, which makes me question it even more if she got no information from you. And
Absolutely. This is completely preposterous, but this is what the Department of Justice, the FBI, Department of Homeland Security has presented to the American people and those abroad who are paying close attention to everything that is going on. Again, when questions are asked, you see the fidgeting, the fumbling, the stumbling, the bumbling, the references back to the Biden administration or others. We are not there anymore. Now, does that absolve the Biden administration for mistakes that they have made? Absolutely not. But if you're going to, again, lay down the accolades and present this portfolio, if you will, of accomplishments, then when you are asked questions about the current administration, answer them. Yes or no when asked. It's as simple as that. Let's listen to this next clip.
Director Lyons, last year you said in Phoenix at the Border Security Expo that you wanted to see a deportation process that was like, quote, Amazon Prime, but with human beings. Mr. Lyons, how many times has Amazon Prime shot a mom 3 times in the face?
None, sir, but you're also
It's the square root of 0. That's right.
Yes, sir. Yeah, but if we're going to go down that route of my comment, I did say that comment. However, that comment was taken out. If you go back and watch the video, I did say that we need to be more efficient when it comes to removing individuals from the United States, because ICE doesn't detain punitively. We detain to remove. I don't want to see people in custody. At the end of my statement was, and again, to your point, it was a industry day for AI and efficiencies. But I did say at the end of it, but we deal with human beings, so we can't be like them.
And speaking
That's
of
the
human,
key part that you're leaving out.
Well, speaking of human beings, how many times has Amazon Prime shot a nurse 10 times in the back?
None.
How many times has Amazon Prime dragged a woman out of her car by her hair and then dragged her down the street?
None.
How many ICE agents have been fired for their conduct under your leadership?
Sir, I can get you that data. I'll get that back to you.
Is it more than one?
I'm not going to speak about personnel actions, but I'll get you that data.
Can you tell us if at least, God, I hope at least one person has been fired for their conduct since these operations have begun? Are you telling us you can't even say one?
As I mentioned at the top of this broadcast, the 2 individuals that were involved in the unaliving of Alex Pretty are under federal investigation, much to the chagrin of those who listened to Vice President J.D. Vance. Next, we're going to pivot to the case many people have been speaking on, and that is Nancy Guthrie. Nancy Guthrie, who has been missing almost 2 weeks now. Almost 2 weeks. Unbelievable. There have been a lot of questions that I've had, as many people have had, and again, it starts with law enforcement, who, in my opinion, they've botched it from the very beginning. First, you had grainy footage. Well, prior to that, you didn't have any footage at all. Then there's this nest footage, and then you had people of interest detained and released, and these alleged ransom notes, and then TMZ involved, and then the FBI comes out with SWAT, and so many people that have come in, which, again, in my opinion, dealing with evidence in the past, that there is a protocol, and only certain people's hands should be touching certain things. The latest information that I've heard, and I'm sure it's been an update by now, but there were several gloves that allegedly belonged to searchers. Why in the world would searchers discard their gloves? That makes no sense. None of this makes any sense. And not only that, not to be disrespectful, because I'm not. This story, while it is very heartbreaking, and my prayers to the family and prayers for a safe return, doesn't negate that there are many missing people every day. Relisha Rudd, and I'm going to put a link to a video I did, has been missing since 2014. Relisha Rudd is from Washington, D.C. She was 8 years old when she went missing from a D.C. shelter, possibly trafficked by a 51-year-old man who deleted himself and his wife. Relisha went missing, and she hasn't been found as of yet. Cash Patel, Pam Bondi, have you heard of Relisha Rudd? because the last person who was chief of police at the time when this investigation really revved up was Police Chief Kathy Lanier, a Caucasian woman. I remember seeing many, many cadets out in that area, but it seems as though the case has grown cold. Her anniversary of being missing for 12 years is coming up, well, being reported as missing. It's coming up March the 1st of this year. Again, Cash Patel, Pam Bondi. Have you heard of Alicia Rudd? Why isn't anyone talking about her? Allegations, speculations were and have been that she may have been trafficked. I'm not saying this has anything to do with the E-files, but still, this was a little girl, 8 years old, impoverished. Is that the reason why? Because this is a marginalized situation. And the attention should not be the same. Again, I would encourage you, for those who really, truly are concerned about the return of all missing persons, to utilize resources fairly and equitably for all people. Alicia Rudd was 8 years old. Again, Pam Bondi, Cash Patel, this is in your backyard. Where's her file? Are there any active agents on this case as of today, February 16th, 2026? I had to get that out there. You know, as it relates to Miss Nancy. Third-party DNA. Authorities confirmed that DNA not belonging to Guthrie or her close contacts was found at the property, but they are working to identify its source. Excuse me. Handling of items. Gloves recovered near the scene were submitted for analysis, but the initial handling of the scene raised questions about the chain of custody. Again, in my capacity years ago as an evidence custodian, there was a chain of custody. Certain people were not authorized to enter an active crime scene. I don't understand how this is being overlooked and how so many journalists and reporters have been able to get so close. In my opinion, this is tainted already. So I asked a basic question. Former law enforcement officials and experts have expressed concerns regarding the early handling of the scene, including potential contamination of people entering the home before the FBI took over. To me, that falls on the sheriff's office, which, again, I've raised my eyebrow many times and I have poo-pooed on the reports from TMZ, because if you recall, Mr. Levin said whoever wrote these ransom notes were very sophisticated. But then, as time has gone on, it seems like the perpetrator or perpetrators have not been sophisticated at all, or at least that's the optics that are being shown to those following this case. A former FBI agent suggested that family members and the police possibly, to be fair, possibly should be highlighted, contaminated the crime scene by moving in and out of the home. Again, experienced law enforcement, that's something that you just don't do, which could cause crucial DNA or other evidence to be lost or tainted. My friends, any DNA secured, trust and believe it's been tainted. Unmanaged scene. The scene was described by some observers as unmanaged and potentially contaminated. Again, we hear the word contaminated. Digital evidence. While initial reports suggested no video existed, forensic experts worked to recover potentially lost or corrupted digital data from the home's security system. Now, we have heard about no subscription and then Nest being utilized. We also saw what appeared to be 4 stills, and then the possibility of more than one person. Different descriptions. I mean, this case has had so many twists and turns. It's been unbelievable. I'm going to play a clip that resurfaced. Some people are speculating that this might have something to do with this. I cannot attest to if there's any validity in these speculations, but I thought it was noteworthy, so let's take a listen.
First time in London, I was so young. Keelan woke me up in the morning and said, "You're going to meet a prince today." I didn't know at that point that I was going to be trafficked to that prince. And then that night, Prince Andrew came to her house in London, and we went out to Club Tramp. Prince Andrew got me alcohol. It was in the VIP section. I'm pretty sure it was vodka. Prince Andrew was like, "Let's dance together." And I was like, okay. And we leave Club Tramp, and I hop in the car with Ghislaine and Jeffrey, and Ghislaine said he's coming back to the house, and I want you to do for him what you do for Epstein. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that even royalty were involved.
That was an interview conducted by Savannah Guthrie, daughter of Nancy Guthrie. One more clip.
A new statement from the FBI that is pretty significant. I'm going to read you the full thing. It says,
The gloves found approximately 2 miles from the Guthrie residence in a field near the side of the road were packaged up by the Pima County Sheriff's Office and sent overnight on 2/12, and they arrived at the private lab in Florida on 2/13. The FBI received preliminary results yesterday on 2/14 and are awaiting quality control and official confirmation today before putting unknown male profile into CODIS, the national database unique to the Bureau. This process typically takes 24 hours from when the Bureau receives DNA. Now, this is the important part. Investigators collected approximately 16 gloves in various areas near the house. Most of them were searchers' gloves that they discarded in various areas when they searched the vicinity. The one with the DNA profile recovered is different and appears to match the gloves of the subject in the surveillance video. The FBI will continue to provide assistance on whatever timeline is provided to us. Let me read you that line again. The one with the DNA profile recovered is different and appears to match the gloves of the subject in the surveillance video. So, and it's kind of a confusing statement, but the way I read it is the glove that was recovered 2 miles from the Guthrie residence is different.
And if you believe that, and no shade to Mr. Enton, who has been working tirelessly and seemingly he's been very close to this investigation, and meaning in close proximity of the home, which again, this I believe is still considered an active crime scene or an investigation. How he's able to get so close, but then again, I guess certain media, they have access, or perhaps limited or restricted. I'm not sure, but again, just something to note. But as he mentioned, there were other gloves found, but one pair might be one that matches. So again, I don't have any trust in anything that is coming out as it relates to this case. From the very beginning, it seemed very, very odd, and with each update, it's exhausting, and it's sad, and it shows how horribly law enforcement, in my opinion, has handled this case and how it's been presented to the public, and the toll it's taking on the family and those who are very, very concerned, and those who are triggered, who have family members and loved ones that are missing and have been missing, and no one knows anything about this. Thank you for tuning in to the Weekend Review. I'm your hostess, Lisa. I'm so glad you took time out of your day or perhaps morning to listen in. Again, I hope you were able to glean something out of this broadcast. And again, all comments are welcome. Just make sure you are respectful. Enjoy the remainder of your night. And for those of you who will have today off, enjoy and make sure you do something positive. Contribute something positive. Until next time, everyone, please, as always, be safe, be well, and be healthier. Please make sure before you leave, double tap your screen, or depending upon the device you might be listening to, give this a thumbs up. Again, if you're new, welcome, and I do hope you decide to return once again. Bye-bye for now.